Okay, I'm gonna
There we go.
pause the trend.
Hey, we're live.
Hello,
Let
hello.
me get my intro up because I have everything written down. Um,
Greetings from planet Earth.
Greetings is the word that I use. Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm Joe Fulgham. Joining me as usual is Dr. Rob Tarswell. It's right over there. Welcome to Viral Transmissions, episode number 16. We're calling this one the Anti-Mask League for reasons.
Indeed. Which
Torn
will become apparent.
Torn is also not with us. We didn't really announce it last week. He's kind of stepped away. He's got a lot of projects going on. We're hoping we can have him on as a guest once in a while because we do miss him. There's no ill will or bad blood. He's just working on a whole bunch of his other projects, and this is one he had to let go.
A lot of outs is a very complicated case, man.
Yeah. We have no guest again tonight. It's another COVID-19 news roundup. Plus, we're trying to get a few good news stories in here and there to ease with the COVID news burnout. I've got a couple, hopefully.
We'll let you decide if we succeeded.
Yeah, one of them is COVID related, but good.
Not hopeful.
It's got a little. I know.
Not hopeful.
It's so hard to find good news. Viral Transmissions is, as we've noted several times before, supported in part by the BC Humanist Association. You can learn more about them at bchumanist.ca. And I say it every time, we really do appreciate them and the help that they've given us. And also...
We're eternally grateful, but they're sort of the opposite of a religious organization, so it's to whom we are finitely grateful.
I mean, I'm... Sure, there. In some ways, you could call humanism a religion, depending on the way that you describe. It's kind of a belief system, which isn't
It's
exact.
not the eternal kind.
That's fair. It's not eternal. I'm sure, like all things, it will pass. Okay,
This is your life, and it's not a rehearsal.
so I think we're starting with the numbers this week. Is that what we're doing, Rob?
Oh, yeah, let's get right into the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
Sunday numbers.
So we've all
Absolutely.
paid attention to this horrible pandemic that's sweeping the nation. We've learned that masks can help. We've learned that social distancing can help, that washing your hands helps. So obviously, being Homo sapiens, that is the wise apes, we've all taken all this information into account. And now the virus is being fought by these wise apes who learn the info and can understand about taking action now to make changes to the future, right? And that's where we're at.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So it is clearly just a series of happenstance circumstances that cases are exploding in Brazil and Mexico, and now Peru is starting to come from behind, along with the rest of Latin America. And in North America, our neighbors to the south, hello America, Canada, we're your hat, America's hat. And we're worried about what's going down in the head there. I think 522,000 global deaths from coronavirus. 122,000 of those are from America. So no longer a quarter of global deaths. Now down to perhaps 22% of deaths. Hooray!
So I googled real quick. I was like, why would Peru's numbers being? So I was like, why is COVID rising in Peru? And
Is your neighbor streaming?
so for
It's a competing podcast.
for everybody who can hear that, I apologize for my super sensitive microphone. It's right there. It's quite good at picking up everything. My roommate downstairs streams League of Legends, and she is super dramatic about being attacked in that video game. I don't want you to worry about her. She's fine. This happens all the time. I got these on. I can barely hear it, but that I heard. Wow.
The real victim is you, the audience.
Yes.
And we're sorry.
But if you are wondering, Joe, do you get anxiety hearing somebody sound like they're constantly being assaulted? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. I try to fill this up with other sound. I'm sorry that my microphone doesn't get rid of that. So when that happens, please don't worry. My roommate is not being assaulted. Okay, so I googled why is it rising in Peru, and the first response I get is a news article from a couple of weeks ago that literally the title says, "Peru giving up on virus measures in face of sinking economy."
Wow.
So 2 weeks
Okay.
ago, and
That's a story we've heard. We're getting seriously upstaged.
sorry again. I
Should we get League of Legends sponsorship, or should your roommate?
I I mean, if that's who you play against when you play League of Legends, and that's what you have to hear in your ear when you play, I don't think that's a very good advertisement for the game. Um,
Uh, oh, well,
I
we got to fight fire with fire, says Ischemiel. I don't know
yeah,
if we're quite
maybe.
there yet, but we're not above that. We are not above that. I'm not above.
I cannot beat my roommate in that kind of drama. It's just not in me to be that dramatic. I'm
Yeah, we've
I
got to take the diplomatic route because Joe has to actually keep living where he lives.
I don't think stoic is exactly the way to describe me, but yeah, I'm not dramatic is not one of the things that I would use. I'm sorry, we'll just have to get through that. Yeah, so this is brutal, and this is one of the things that I was talking about with you before the show that that I think really gets in the way of us as humans dealing with COVID-19 is kind of the 2 week delay between doing a thing and then seeing the difference that thing makes. And it reminds me of the marshmallow experiments that we do with kids, right? The what's that called? Delayed gratification tests,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like here's a marshmallow. If you don't eat this right away, I'll give you more marshmallows later on. And there's the kids who can be like, oh, I like more marshmallows. I'll hold on to this. And there's other kids who go, I don't care. I'm eating this marshmallow. It gets so much more difficult when that delay is 2 weeks and you don't know for sure what those changes are going to be.
Right.
That and it also feels like sometimes, oh, it's gone up. Maybe the numbers have gone up, and you're like, but we all started wearing masks just now. Yeah, we all started wearing masks maybe half a week ago, and so we're still dealing with effects from 2 weeks where it's going up. Right? This is America specifically, or
All
other places
are a
have had.
long way from wearing masks,
Well,
or even just
yes,
staying
but
6 feet apart and washing our
right,
hands. Right.
right, yeah, yeah. But also the same difference of, wow, this is terrible. Look at all these people who are close together. We're not going to see the negative effects of that until 2 weeks
Right.
later.
Right.
And
Right.
they're all going to feel completely distanced from those effects and their actions.
And the next level of compounding, of course, comes from the fact that you're probably most infectious about 2 days before your symptoms start. So you are a kind of a COVID candidate,
Yeah.
um, sort of somewhere between Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Manchurian Candidate. So
Yeah.
You're a Mancovian candidate for a couple of days before you start having symptoms. And the time of onset from exposure to symptoms is 5 weeks to 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And then from the average, it seems, from the time the disease is detected, and most people don't get tested until they're actually feeling sick,
Right.
is about another 2 to 3 weeks. So the time from when the virus actually grabs onto your ACE receptors and gets into your cells until the time you're dropping dead could be in the 3 to 4 week range.
Yeah.
And so we see tests rising in America, especially now. There's major, what did Florida, I think now over 50,000 cases a day in the US. I think 56,000 is the current record set either today or yesterday. And with Florida setting record numbers of cases, Arizona close behind. There's lots of places in the U.S. where more than 5,000 cases per day are happening. So there are lots of little Manhattans happening in America right now. And that's only just all started to kind of pop in the last week. So we are 2 weeks, maybe three, from starting to see this downward trending death to it starting to spike back up,
Yeah.
and then we're right back into 24-hour a day ambulance
Hmm.
sirens, ICU beds full on overload. I think I've seen already a couple of tweets out of Houston that ICU beds are now running at 100% capacity. A few days ago, adult patients were getting surged to the pediatric hospital because ICU beds are full. And it's coming, right? It's coming. We're going to see refrigerated trucks again as temporary morgues. We're going to see mass graves again, and it is as inexorable as the tide. And yet we're still locked in these just crazily petty battles about whether the figures are real and is it going up because we're testing more. You can make an argument that as you're testing more, you're detecting more cases, but that's only if your positive test percentage remains the same. So if you go from 10,000 cases or 10,000 tests to 100,000 tests, and your positive percent test stays at around 5%, then you can say, oh, we're testing more, so we're picking up more cases. But if you go from 10,000 tests to 100,000 and the percentage of positive tests goes from 5 to 25%, your number of new tests isn't keeping up with how fast the disease is spreading.
Right.
That's what we're seeing across the southern U.S. now. Which, of course, brings us to my favorite new tweet. It's from Stephen King earlier today, who's responding to a certain president of one of the three great North American nations.
He's president? I thought he was just a reality TV star.
Well, he's still that. He never stopped being that, it seems.
Yeah.
So the tweet from Donald Trump: new China virus cases up because of massive testing. Deaths are down, low and steady. The fake news media should report this, and also that new jobs numbers are setting records. To which Stephen King retweets, "It's the America virus now, big boy."
Yeah.
And I kind of have to laugh, but it's a grim kind of a laugh. Posted it in the comments for your reference, for those who are interested. And so what we were talking about, and of course the numbers are climbing, and they're going to climb, and I think now with 122,000 dead, what's the next major record, I think, for the U.S. to surpass? Is that World War II dead at around 300,000, 350,000? I guess we'll see. And then the next record after that, I think, is Civil War dead. And then I think after that would probably be deaths from slavery. But I'm not sure what those numbers are or when those start to get equal. But I think we can easily see, which is kind of a horrific and tragic thing to say, I think we could easily see World War II numbers get passed without much time at all.
Yeah.
If New York
They
suddenly
would
pop.
only slightly have to double. So this says here 132,000 U.S. deaths from COVID.
132,000. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
132,000. And in World War II, the U.S. suffered 291,557 military
so 2.5
casualties.
times the current number, about, or 2.25 maybe.
About 2.25. Yeah.
And so, that might happen. I remember back in March when Dr. Fauci, Anthony Fauci, was predicting between 1 and 200,000 U.S. dead, and everyone was like, "What? Are you kidding?" And now it looks like 200 was small. But back then, the assumption was that there was going to be some kind of coordinated national response. And as has been pointed out in a number of places, it's a national problem being dealt with local responses, and that's just not enough.
Yeah. And like we've seen with the 100% infection numbers, there's almost no upper end to this. Like at a certain point, enough of them will be infected, but like, what's it going to do?
We're not even close.
No, we're at total infections in the U.S. We got recovered 879,000. What's that? 2.93 million. So we're almost at 1% of the U.S. having been infected, and that's one. And because the infected spread, like, so the number infected determines how many more you're going to have infected, right? Like,
Right.
so
Yeah.
so okay, sure, it took a while to get to here, but now there's that many people who can then spread it to even more. So doubling it is not a problem. Like, they've been,
Right.
yeah. I just it's so hard to get a handle on the idea that
Yeah.
this many people could be infected and then die. That right now
Yeah.
it's almost 3 million, about 1% of the population, and within less than a month it could be double that.
Well, it certainly seems like that's the trajectory that we're on,
Yeah.
because there's a whole lot of stay the course, stay reopened kind of rhetoric, at least right now. We'll see if the more hard hit U.S. states start to turn that around, and what that results in. I mean, this again, like we talked about a few weeks ago, this is a tragic waste of the first shutdown, which was okay. Figure out where your outbreaks are, quarantine, isolate those, reopen the economy around them, have a plan.
Yeah.
And that plan has to include massive testing, which hasn't happened and appears like it's not happening. If anything, it sounds like the signal from that tweet from Donald Trump seems to be, if I'm reading between the lines correctly, we're doing too much testing, but we got to do less testing. That's kind of my read on that. To whatever degree you can read it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to hold my mouse over the mute button on my microphone for the stream. This is like, if it's getting through these new earpads I've got, it must be very loud over my stream. So I apologize to anybody listening for that screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Ischemial did mention a good thing, and I just kind of want to segue into that real quick about Stephen King. Stephen King also did a thing where he retweeted a J.K. Rowling tweet,
right.
And it was in the middle of kind of an anti-trans rant, but it was actually about women, and so it seems like he kind of misunderstood what was being said, and a bunch of people were like, "Oh gosh, I don't know what's going on here," and she retweeted him, supporting her, and then somebody said, "Well, come on, Stephen, tell us at least that you think that trans women are women." And he replied saying, "Yes, trans women are women." And she deleted her retweet of him and then blocked him.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part.
So, yeah.
And that's what happens, folks. Read the whole Twitter thread.
Yeah.
Read the whole. But, I need this advice as much as anybody else. I'll see something that looks interesting, and I'll RT it. And 10 minutes later, oh my God, what have I done? It's okay. You can just un-RT things.
Or sometimes it looks like somebody says something fairly reasonable, but then you find out they're a total garbage person, right? That you're like, yes, I do like chocolate sprinkles on my vanilla ice cream cone. Oh, that guy's a Nazi. Oh, that's not good. I gotta.
Yeah, ice cream is still good, but I need to consciously distance myself from his appreciation of ice cream.
We all make mistakes.
Which is, for all I know, is the newest 4chan meme about white supremacy.
It could be, I don't know.
For all I know, because it evolves that fast. Kids, try to keep up with the internet. It's always ahead of you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they've been ruining sprinkles since longer than that, Ischemial. But it was good. The problem is, we've known J.K. Rowling is I don't use the word TERF that often because I don't even know how much of a radical feminist she is. Also, it turns it into an argument about whether or not TERF is a slur, which it certainly isn't. I don't think TERF is a slur, but I don't even want to give them the opportunity to try that. So I just call them bigoted transphobes, and then they either have to say yes, I am. Or they have to be like, well, it's not transphobia, but whereas TERF is like, well, it's a slur, and it just derails into that BS. I feel the same way about the word Islamophobia. Because they're like, I'm not afraid of Islam, right? Or using the word racism for it because they like to go, Muslim is not a race. And I go, okay, let's
Yeah,
just call you a bigot then. I'll just use the word so that you can't even have that opportunity to change
we're
this
going to
argument.
use we're going to use language precision against you
Yeah, if you're going to
because we
play these
know
little
more
games.
words.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
We know
So
words.
and that seems to be a thing. Again, this isn't what viral transmissions is about, but we certainly think that trans women are women and that trans lives matter, black lives matter, black trans lives matter. That England is overrun with transphobes. That there's been a very successful kind of anti-trans message that has reached not just the kind of, I don't know what the non-insulting word is, not just the dopes, but a great many of UK celebrities are on board with just outright transphobia. That they have been told to be worried about transgender women in their bathrooms, despite the fact that feminists appropriating reactionary transphobe. But again, Nowu, all of those involve having to explain to somebody who doesn't know this little haha look at these dumb turfs thing, right? It's great for a little in crowd of people who are decent, but when I have to explain to somebody who hasn't been paying attention to J.K. Rowling or Ricky Gervais or Glinner, who's the guy who wrote IT Crowd, if I have to explain, so now she's laughing. If I have to explain to people who aren't familiar with all of that stuff, that I don't want to have to do that. Take time to explain what turf means, to take time to
Exactly.
explain why they think it's a slur and why they're wrong. I'll stick to the word that is going to get it across to people that need to know it much better, which is bigoted transphobe. And that's not to say don't call them turfs if that's the way you want to do it, especially within our own group. Like, I'd certainly call her a turf to Rob or to somebody else who would get it. But when I, again, talk publicly, I don't know who's going to know those terms yet. So,
It's
blast,
like any kind of specialized language.
yeah, blast JK into space, make her into AstroTurf. Yeah, that's good.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
So
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We need a Golga Frincham arc to put all these useless people on and blast them off the planet. It wouldn't be telephone sanitizers, it'd just be all the bigots.
yeah, we don't need telephone sanitizers anymore. Although we do, and a reminder, folks, you got to be sanitizing your phone.
Yeah.
Fomite meaning transmission from inert surfaces. Transmission of coronavirus isn't thought to be as prominent now as it was early on when the kind of the general rule was wash everything all the time. But I don't know what iPhone generation started being waterproof, but I have, a waterproof iPhone. I don't have one of the zany $300 UB. I don't use Lysol wipes. I wash it under the tap with soap and water, just like I wash my hands, and it's fine. I've been doing
Yeah.
it like 3 times a week since the middle of March, and it's fine.
Okay.
So I imagine that Android phones must be similar. They're probably all waterproof. Um, for those times when you accidentally drop them in the toilet and get mistaken for Henry Kissinger. That's a really old Simpsons joke. Never
Super
mind.
old. I must never let them
Super old.
know.
So one thing to remember, of course, is that these numbers, this is a son, it's a daughter, it's a wife, it's a father. Every one of these is a human story that means a lot, probably to a lot of people. And it just hit Twitter about a half an hour ago that Canadian actor Nick Cordero has just passed away at age 41 of coronavirus. And it seems like Nick had a hell of a bad with coronavirus, even needing a leg amputation in April, probably related to the fact that the virus can, in some cases, be linked with widespread clotting. And if you
Yeah.
get clots in leg arteries, well, tissue dies, and that can lead to badness, uh, like gangrene, which needs amputation. I forget at what point he became ventilator dependent, meaning couldn't breathe off of a ventilator. But yeah, it was just announced earlier today. So that's a Broadway star gone, boom,
Uh,
just like that. No pre-existing conditions, healthy, young, and that's what this virus can do. And my fear is going to do to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Again in the U.S. In the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. And he fought this for 95 days. Like that's the thing. Like, and some people might fight it and then come through minus a leg. Right? But this is not a disease that hits you and then it decides right away whether or not you're dead or not. Like, you could suffer for 3 full months, barely breathing, with
Well,
a ventilator stuck down your throat. Right?
there was a really great thread on chronic COVID, which is now becoming increasingly recognized
Mm-hmm.
as a significant problem for we don't know yet how many people have this because it's not even clear who we haven't defined what this looks like, chronic COVID syndrome. These people are just kind of popping online, they're finding each other, they're going to their doctors. Some doctors who are like extreme who are not extremely online might not be aware of this, going, well, I don't know what this is, I don't think it's related to your infection because you were good for a couple of weeks. And there seems to be this waxing and waning disease where people are having fevers. I'm just going to read you a few tweets off this thread. Let me grab it and put it here for those who want to follow along. Um, yeah. Hey, so I got COVID-19 in March. I've been sick for over 3 months with severe respiratory, cardiovascular, and neurological symptoms. I still have a fever. I've been incapacitated for nearly a season of my life. It's not enough to not die. You don't want to live through this either. Um, and she goes on about having fevers, fatigue, feeling like she's on the point of death. And this is after 2 weeks. And the fevers can be so high that she's like sweating through the sheets. And chest pain can come back that feels like the intensity of a heart attack. Brain fog. Well, we don't know what this is. Whether this is some kind of an ongoing autoimmune response. It doesn't seem to be active infection because viruses isn't getting detected in these folks that get retested. Their PCR tests are negative. So what is it? Well, it remains
Oh.
to be defined, but it could certainly um, be a problem that affects a significant percentage of survivors. So again, it's not necessary for the vast majority of people. It comes, you go through 2 to 3 weeks of hell, and you recover. But a whole lot of people are staying sick, and that sickness is up and down. And we need to figure out, okay, what are the symptoms? What is this syndrome? What's the cause of it? Is it an autoimmune disorder? Can we then treat it with drugs that we use to treat autoimmune disorders? Um, all open questions. This is like a thing that we're just starting to realize because we're only 6 months into this, so we're only at the point now where you can even start saying that something's chronic. Because typically, as a rule of thumb, you want something to be around for about 6 months before you say, oh, this is chronic pain, or this is a chronic cough, or this is a chronic runny nose. Well, okay, now we've got chronic COVID. Doesn't appear to be infectious, but it doesn't appear to be very much fun either. And again, it's not just survival or death. It's not. It's not. A lot of people are having outcomes that are not clear.
Yeah. I did unmute. Okay. I have to watch myself because I've been trying to mute. Okay, I'm not muted. Good. Uh, yeah. We keep saying this so much about COVID that in so many instances, we don't know everything about this. That we don't know the full extent of how dangerous this is. We don't know how long lasting all of these effects are. Which to me circles back into so this is why we should really take this as seriously as possible. Which
Yeah.
means, like, if you have to err on one side or the other, err on the side of safety. Err on the side of, like, oh no, what if I was a little too safe about COVID looking back on this, say, 10 years from now? Like, I would
What
much
if I didn't
rather
have to wash my hands every day?
I would much rather go, yeah, I was really overly paranoid about COVID. Now that we know, I don't know, that spraying Lysol up your nose saves your life, or whatever. Maybe we'll find something that deals with it very easily, or something that again we don't know about now. I would much rather say, yes, I did overreact than look back and say I did not react appropriately. Overreacting is not a big deal. Like washing your hands too much, as long as you put a little bit of moisturizer on there, you're fine. It's okay.
It's like the cartoon about global warming where the guy's in the middle of the audience and he puts up his hand and says, what if we eliminate pollution and better world with green energy for nothing?
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, like all we might all I'm doing really is lowering my chance of catching the flu from somebody as well. Well, that's great. I hate the flu too. Yeah.
Get your flu shot this fall. You don't want to get COVID and the flu. We don't know what that looks like yet because we were already on the tail end of flu season when COVID. But
yeah,
my non-infectious disease doctor hunches that's going to be really, really brutal and possibly very fatal.
I'm really hoping that BC. So we've done well with BC. We've talked about Dr. Bonnie Tyler, and we've talked about our numbers going down. But I'm also seeing a lot of people who really want to just leave this behind and move on to business as usual. Go to bars, go to high risk encounters, go to high risk locations, not wear their mask and things like that. And I know that if that happens before we get a handle on this, all it takes is a couple of super spreader events, and we're right back to really bad again. Did I say Bonnie Tyler? Sorry.
I didn't even catch that.
It is a total. That was a total eclipse of my brain. Bonnie Henry.
Turn around right now, Bright Eyes. More of that coffee.
Making love on a nothing at all.
Your coffee cup looks almost the size of Scott Adams, who, may I say, had quite a weekend on Twitter.
F that guy too. He's garbage. Scott Adams, you're a garbage person. J.K. Rowling, very bad person. I mean, this is the thing about, at least J.K. Rowling does a few good things in her life. Sure. Right. Scott Adams, that guy.
Homer was hilarious in the 90s. I'm not going to lie. Some of those strips had me die. I mean, because I did work in a big office setting. I was in the Air Force, but I was in a big Air Force headquarters setting, and it was like, wow, this guy understands my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like engineers talking about medicine. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, he gets that one target of his derision there accurately, and now when he speaks up about anything, people listen to him. And it's like, oh, it turns out he doesn't actually know anything about almost anything else.
But he nailed 90s corporate office because it was a thing. It was very much a thing.
Yep. Yeah, it makes me wonder, and I don't want to make accusations, but it makes me wonder how much of what he did that was right was actually just from people going, "Oh my God, I love your strip. Here's another thing that happened to me," and he just goes, "Well, let's turn that into a strip." Because how long did he work at an office to do that? No, he got.
I don't know. I go ahead. Sorry.
He got all sorts of people to send in suggestions, and then those just got turned into more of the same.
But I mean, why not, right? If you're riding this wave, you want the very best. So people who love your strip are gonna, oh, you think that's bad? You should hear my story, right? Yeah. It's like this new Twitter account I'm following, WorkyLeaks, and if you want to find really the terrible, awful things that go on at work, follow at WorkyLeaks. But warning: don't look inside unless you're willing to know and never unknow how the sausage is made in all sorts of areas around. But yeah, if I was riding that wave, I would absolutely take the best things, because I'd be going, oh my God, I never would have thought of that in a million years. Yes. I have to work that into.
I don't blame him.
I cannot fault the man for his workflow. That is a completely sensible workflow to me.
I don't blame him for that, but it limits how much appreciation I can have for him.
Sure.
It's like the John Krasinski Some Good News show. Anybody can collate good news articles and try to do a feel good show that ignores the negatives of all that kind of stuff. And many people did. But
The
then
good
so
news
many
is
people
I just
praised.
sold this show at a huge profit for me.
Yeah, for
Peace
me.
out.
Yeah.
Good work if you can get it, John.
Yeah. He doesn't even
And
get
he
it.
stole it. He stole the bit.
Yeah, he really did. Like everybody had done it. You find that more about Krasinski. Like that, the movie he had about everybody being quiet was based on some. Like, there's other stuff that's almost exactly like that. That it's like, hey, it looks like he's decided to go ahead and do that. I don't know. I don't like hate John Krasinski, but I'm like, eh, celebrities
But
and
my favorite Dilbert strip
okay.
has to be Scott Adams. Scott Adams on saying that within 1 year of Joe Biden getting elected, Republicans will be hunted in the street.
Yeah, we'll be hunted in the
Oh,
street.
that was the first time I noticed how big his coffee cup is, and I thought, okay,
Oh,
someone's had a little too much. Maybe you shouldn't have the second cup if your mug's that size.
I drink a lot of coffee, and I don't ever think anybody's coming to hunt me.
Okay, I was just trying to be, charitable in terms
Yeah.
of the possible explanations for why he would just suddenly burst forth on a fine Saturday morning.
he's he's been a bit of a crank for a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah. That was pretty special, though. That was
Yeah.
special. What was not so special and was a bit alarming with the number of people that were kind of chiming in his replies, absolutely agreeing with him, and finding his logic just impact.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess we'll see what happens. This is a very testable hypothesis.
Yeah.
One hopes that the null hypothesis holds in this case, and that there is
Yeah.
excessive hunting of anybody in the streets 1 year following the next U.S. president.
Should we put in a good news a good news mention now that we've been talking about how terrible people are and how the world is going to hell? Let's.
What do we got? I mean,
Well, I've got one that I like. Yeah, Eskimiel says yes, please. Okay, I have some good news. If you're at all a video game player, this is probably some good news for you. Amazon Prime.
no.
Amazon Prime has announced a Fallout TV series from the creators of Westworld. If anybody is not familiar with the world of Fallout, it is a post-apocalyptic world set in kind of a it's set in the future, but from an alternate past where in the 40s and 50s nuclear power became like a really big deal. Like they fully embraced nuclear power, and that led to kind of a 50s white picket fence, robots preparing your meal kind of world. But then China and America got into a huge thermonuclear exchange. A bunch of people hid in these underground vaults, which it turned out that many of them are actually like darkly humorous, weird social experiments. One was an experiment about the power of gambling. Another one was basically a full-on propaganda and pro-America kind of vault. One was a vault full of just clones of all the same guy. And then those vaults lived underground for, I believe, hundreds of years, and then many of them opened up to then try to repopulate this post-apocalyptic world, which is now full of mutants and mutant humans called ghouls, who are they're basically like normal humans, but not affected negatively by the radiation, but they look like zombies. But many of them still have their minds and are just regular sentient humans. Some of them have gone feral and are actually like zombies. And it's just darkly humorous, has like some weird, wild wasteland kind of humor to it, but also a bunch of cool factions set up that they can absolutely have all sorts of kind of Game of Thronesian who's going to control this nuclear apocalyptic wasteland, right? Who's going to seize the safe water control chip so that they can then control this area of the wasteland or something like that. Really, really, just great world, and the Westworld people are, I think, one of the best choices to make a TV series on this. I'm very
Westworld,
excited.
the Westworld producers are very good at world.
Yeah, Yeah.
And now they've even built a world on top of the world. So we await what season 4 of Westworld brings, and now I guess what season 1 of Fallout brings.
Yeah. Super looking forward to it. Just so many. I've been thinking about what they could do because I'm sure a bunch of people think, oh, they could do this story from that game or that story from that game. There've been a bunch of Fallout games. Originally, they were like little turn-based kind of role-playing games. Then they turned into 3D shooters that have role-playing built into them. Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, a bunch of DLC for each of them. So like and they're all set in like different areas, which can have different factions or even different angles on existing factions and stuff like that. And I'm thinking that the TV show will probably pick its own place to set up its own little story to tell. But yeah, super looking forward to it. I would
Okay, so
agree
that's
with that,
good.
Levy. The Institute's chaotic good, the Brotherhood of Steel is lawful evil. Yeah.
Well, they said it and they're not taking it back, so it doesn't matter if you agree.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yes.
I think now that
Fallout New Vegas.
we've talked about Fallout, I
Yeah.
think it's time to talk crank physics, or
Okay.
maybe crank physicist.
Crank physicist. Yeah, he's not talking about physics.
Here's another Canadian gift to the world. This is Dr. Rancourt,
Yeah.
a former professor of physics at the University of Ottawa, who came out this week with an article, Masks Don't Work, a review of science relative, got physicists on the brain, relevant to COVID-19 social policy, to which my first response is, beware physicists bearing medicine. And it's a fascinating article which just kind of comes flat down and says masks don't work, the virus is airborne, the particles are too small, they flow right through your mask anyway, no mask can capture that, not even an N95. And here are these 5 articles that prove what I'm saying. So this is all based on good medical science. And what's interesting is, I mean, back in March, when there was still a kind of mask understanding was based on data from the past. It was based on the best information we had from influenza, and that appeared to show no really good difference for mask use by the public. There was evidence that masks worked for healthcare providers, but anytime it was studied as a public intervention, it was sort of didn't seem to make much of a difference in H1N1, didn't seem to make much of a difference in other settings where it was applied. And so that was the evidence that I was kind of looking at back in March when that article came out in the New York Times from the emergency physician who said we all have to put on masks right now, and here are the reasons why. And what it basically came down to was here's my cherry-picked set of studies that confirms my priors, and now Professor or Dr. Rancourt has come out. Here's my series of cherry-picked articles that confirms my priors. And the tell, if you will, is that the latest article he has is published in 2020. Most of it's 2019 or earlier. And that 2020 article, if you've ever been involved in the publication of a review article, it takes about 2 to 3 years to put a review article together. So a 2020 review is going to be dealing with data from 2019, 18, 17, usually the previous 5 years, because that's about how often in a field that's moving moderately quickly. It's not worth publishing review articles any faster than that because there's nothing new going. And it says influenza, so it doesn't. None of this is coronavirus data. So,
Yeah.
but here we are now in July 2020, and we have coronavirus specific data, and any specific data about the coronavirus is going to be way more useful than even the most finely crafted review article about influenza. These articles were really helpful before we had coronavirus data on mask effectiveness. And that was why public health has appeared to be slow about endorsing mask use, because they're like, okay, before we have coronavirus data, before we recommend a massive intervention that could imperil already tenuous supplies of protective equipment that are needed by healthcare providers, we better be sure we know what the hell we're talking about. And old data didn't seem to support mask use by the general public. But the data started to come in, and the data started to come in. And that was things like, well, in Hong Kong, where there was never a shutdown and 7.5 million people, many of whom take the train to work, there's never been a massive outbreak, despite the fact that lots of people take the train. But, hey, 97% of people wear a mask in the morning on their way to work. And that's actually been studied, right? Scientists have stood there on the subway platforms, counting people not wearing masks, counting the total size of the crowd, figuring out the percentage. Oh, interesting. Or in Taiwan, where there's massive mask compliance. Now, those aren't the only things that are going on. There's also really, really tight and rapid and aggressive responses with lots of testing, quarantining of outbreaks so that the economy can continue to move around little quarantine bubbles. So it's a multi-pronged approach. But the key difference seems to be masks. Now, an important outlier, interestingly enough, is British Columbia, where we're sitting, where there never really was a huge mask mandate, and we actually managed to really well without masks. Manitoba would also be included, large, but in terms of jurisdictions over 5 million, BC has done the best without masks. But if you look at all large jurisdictions, and now we've got New Zealand, Australia, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, masks do seem to be an important ingredient in puzzle. An ingredient in the puzzle? An important piece of the puzzle. Sorry, I mix metaphors. I got that from my mother. I'm gonna die with it. So let's grab this bull by the horns and run with it. Masks are important. It's not the case that you can just conjure up 5 articles that support your view and say, look, I reviewed the medical evidence and therefore this is true. If he sent this review in, his 5-article review of reviews, or like a systematic, into a journal editor, he would have to it would get what's called desk rejected. It wouldn't even get sent out for peer review. The editor would go, no, these are just cherry-picked articles. We're not publishing this. This isn't science. To publish something that's called a systematic review, you have to fully disclose, and I've published a systematic review, and it was the worst 2 years of my life. You have to, in an algorithm that you publish in your review, say, okay, look, this is how we found the articles that these are the search terms we used on the databases that we searched. These are the medical librarians that we contacted. You have to you have to show a process that is completely replicable. Your method has to be replicable.
Right.
And then once you've got that big hopper of articles, okay, this is how we decided what to keep, and this is how we decided what to reject. And anytime there was a conflict, 2 of 3 authors had to agree whether to include or to exclude. And this all has to be completely transparent. And you have to show that not only did you do a broad survey of all the literature, but that you had a reasonable method of sorting that literature, and that the question you were targeting has to be a scientifically sensible question in the first place. So you can't just start gathering in articles and gathering and gathering and gathering, and then come up with an idea that's kind of new or shocking and slice it. You have to, it's sort of like when you're doing science, you got to come up with the question in advance. So it doesn't look like you're playing shenanigans with the data and then working your way back to what interesting question could we ask that would lead to this weird. You have to sort of phrase the question and then just let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Same thing when you're doing primary science, which is original research, or when you're doing review articles, which is a kind of research, but it's a research of existing research. And this guy hasn't done that. He hasn't done anything even closely approaching what would be considered a systematic review. But conclusion, masks don't work. And it's like, come on, man. But then, we start digging a little more into this guy. Like, okay, why does this physicist care so much about masks to the point that he actually bothered finding and dredging up 5 articles that favored his priors, includes no data about coronavirus transmission at all. And, well, here hangs a tale, and I'll hand it over to Joe, who has all the juicy details.
So, first thing I did when I saw this article, being somebody who doesn't know much about what's going on, but as soon as I saw, here's an article by a guy who says masks don't work, so-and-so, Dennis Rancourt PhD. And I went, this guy is probably not a medical PhD. And Googled him and found his Wikipedia page, which I will share with you because there's a lot of juicy stuff on here.
This is some good reading.
The summary at the top is pretty good. Dennis Rancourt is a former professor of physics at the University of Ottawa. Rancourt is a recognized scientist, but is more widely known for his confrontations with his former employer, the University of Ottawa, over issues involving his grade inflation and academic squatting, the act of arbitrarily changing the topic of a course without departmental permission. So the grade inflation, if you scroll down, you'll find out a little later, is that he gave some of his students in his courses A pluses in his, some. So 23 of them actually got A pluses. Turns out that was all of them.
It was a course of 23 students.
Yes. And they said, can't do that. And he went, what are you going to do? Fire me? And they went, yup. And he went, you can't do that because I'm a crank. He also, the academic squatting is that he changed, let's see, where are we?
I've never even heard of academic squatting before. It's absolutely fantastic. It's fascinating.
It's pretty
wild.
A great,
for a terrible thing.
He also started a blog called U of O Watch to report various alleged malfeasance of administrators and of his colleagues. In 2011, University of Ottawa law professor Joanne St. Louis sued Rancourt for $1 million over 2 U of O Watch blog posts about her. She ended up winning that and was awarded $350,000 in damages plus court costs. Rancourt appealed the decision, but his appeal was denied, and he was ordered to pay an extra $30,000 in costs for the appeal. Dude is an unreasonable person. I think it's pretty fair to say, based on these things. I'm going to guess there's something going on in his head here. I know that we're not allowed to, psychoanalyze human beings with this little information, and I'm not going to ask you to do it, Rob. But when a guy gets paranoid about his employers, gives every single one of his 23 students in his university course an A+, then...
The university physics course.
University physics course. And not an A, here you go, here's an A. An A+. You don't get A pluses that often in university. And he gave all 23 of them an A+. Something's going on in your head. And you should probably talk to a professional about it. I think that is the kindest thing I can say about Dennis Rancourt. But yeah, you can just check out the whole... I'm not going to just read his entire thing here. He's accused the university of promoting violence by students. And as evidence, he posted a YouTube video about anarchism. He's just... he's an odd duck. Let's say he's an odd duck who any claim he makes should be analyzed quite closely for its veracity.
Bono, with apologies to Bono, his mind moves in mysterious...
Yeah, his mind moves in mysterious ways. It doesn't mean he's wrong about everything, right? This is not an ad hominem saying, and therefore he's wrong. But it is certainly, okay, when this guy tells you a thing, you should go, okay, hold on. How good is the data backing him up? And then as Rob says, it's not good at all. It's not good. It's not good. This guy should not be talking about the stuff that he's talking about. Yeah, he's also a global warming denialist. So,
That old chest. So, by contrast, let me just add that earlier this week, in her daily press briefing, Dr. Bonnie Henry Tyler said that she expects British Columbians to be wearing masks and that she herself wears a mask whenever she is in an indoor space.
She's holding out for a hero, people.
She's holding out. Holding out or sold out? Bum, bum, bum. Big mask.
She's in the pocket of big, tiny piece of fabric tied to your face.
Big mask. And interestingly enough, she has continued her approach of be kind, be calm, be safe. It's unlikely that there's going to be a mask mandate in British Columbia. She's gotten a lot of public support through the approach of treating adults like adults, expecting to pull together and do what's right. And so far that's working. And I know for sure anytime I'm in an indoor space that's not my own house, I've got a mask on as soon as I step out the door. So that's a
Yeah.
significant change in my own behavior. So it's really interesting to hear that she herself, she who must be named, is wearing a mask anytime she's in an indoor space. It's just a good part of infection prevention, right?
Yeah.
Wash those filthy hands. Stay 6 feet apart when you can. Wear a mask whenever you're indoors. This is the best approach we have. This is the basket of non-pharmacological inventions. It's all we to keep this thing at bay.
Yeah.
Even
It's
more so because America just bought all the world's remdesivir.
yeah. After the price got announced, super jacked up. Which all it sounds like to me is, yeah, we're gonna. I've talked to my buddies in the federal government. They're gonna buy up all of our stuff, so let's announce the price is much higher so that we can take all of that juicy tax dollars. And we don't even think
Yes.
remdesivir works all that well.
Well, it's sort of works okay. It reduces hospital admissions by a few days, but it is hella hard to make. So they've bought the entire global supply of a drug that's really hard, very difficult to synthesize. As we talked about when we had our pharmacist expert on, Sasha, uh, this who knows it's nice that we have this medication that does appear to make a difference, and it is a statistically meaningful difference. It might even be clinically meaningful in some cases, but it would sure be nice if this drug wasn't so hard to make and didn't involve dozens and dozens of chemical precursors and dozens of steps in a
Right.
very difficult, laborious process.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're looking at over $3,000 a treatment in the United States. It's a several day treatment. It's I think something like $500 an application, and I think it was over 3,000 total if you take it, which is, I mean, we're at almost 3 million people. So what's 3 million times 3,000? That's 9 billion right there. Isn't that how that math works?
Yeah,
So that would
that's
be $9 billion to treat all of them.
yeah,
Which
no,
really,
just
now
for
that I look at their military spending, is not that much money. 9 billion. Start paying that a few times, and it might add up to some real money.
it might. Now, just for fun, yeah, wow, look at that. I'm just pulling up the Gilead stock chart, which
Of
took a very nice juicy jump
course
yesterday
it did.
after the announcement of. But let's see if we can get a 1 month on this bad boy here. Oh, interestingly enough, it's actually below its all-time high of $85, which was back at the end of April. That was around the time that remdesivir trials were starting to come in, showing that it made a difference. So it
Right.
rapidly shot up. Yeah, the story of Gilead is kind of the story of remdesivir, the story of the pandemic itself. It was trading around $63 way back in January. And then, announcement of remdesivir in a trial. It shoots up to $69 in February. Early data suggesting it might be helpful. It goes to 77, then it's back down, fluctuating around. Then the information comes out, oh, actually, no, it's good. And then it's $85 on the 30th of April, starts to come back down. Then they announce it sort of stabilizes around $77. Then they announce, well, it's going to be $3,000 a treatment. Boom, down to $72. And then the American government, well, we're going to buy it all. Boom, back up to 76. So it's really fascinating how you can kind of superimpose all the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic headlines on this stock graph and tell a very interesting story. It's
Yeah.
like pro sports for pharma stock nerds.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of pro sports, do you want to talk about the roller derby guidelines? You said those were really interesting. I'd like to hear your thoughts on
Why, yeah.
what works about this. So we have here some WFTDA COVID-19 guidelines to return to roller derby.
Yeah. Let me see if why am
We've
I?
got it right there. So this is guidelines to return to. This is
Oh, there we go.
the
Yeah.
WFTDA COVID-19 guidelines to return to roller derby document was created as a flexible plan for leagues who voluntarily wish to return to playing the sport of roller derby in areas that may be allowed to do so per their local government and per the recommendations herein. It's a PDF of this. You posted the. Is that the link there?
That link is the Gilead
That's
stock
the
chart.
Gilead link. I will
But
post a link.
there's the. Oh, I just
Oh,
I
you
just
did. Okay.
fired it. Yeah. So yeah, so WFTDA is Women's Flat Track Derby Association, and what they did was they said, all right, what is a reasonable return to play kind of a guide? And they made a 7-tier track all the way from we can't do anything, which is kind of called their baseline condition, um, all the way up to tier 7, which is return to full scale events with spectators. And along the way, they've got steps. So, step 1, tier 1, league return, no contact. Tier 2, league restarts, contact. Tier 3, league only scrimmage and full contact. Tier 4, return to interleague gameplay in region. Next is domestic gameplay, small events. Next is long haul and international gameplay of small events. And then tier is full return to international sports.
Right.
And so they start with, okay, this is hygiene. These are the hygiene practices we expect our athletes to adhere to, which include traveling individually, don't go to events if you're sick, here's how to clean your gear, here's how to clean your hands. A nice list of COVID-19 symptoms, which include some of the more recent symptoms, things like shaking with chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, new loss of taste or smell, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, cough, and fever. That's a really up-to-date list because a lot of people are still operating on the fever, cough, shortness of breath, which was the original World Health Organization list back in January, February when we were trying to figure out, well, what the heck is this thing? So then, how does my league know we are ready? Well, first, every team has a risk coordinator. Then they have coordinators who have read infection control guidance and made them available to the league. Has your leadership read the recommendations for return to full contact skating? Do you know how to find and where to find the most accurate and updated information on COVID-19 in your local region and country? So they want you to be aware of what municipal and state level and national level authorities are recommending. And then their conditions are your local government must have official regulations or guidelines on re-socializing that remove stay-at-home orders and proximity restrictions, allow for public congregations of at least 50, and do not prevent your league from congregating and recreating with non-contact, all the way up. And so these guidelines are really welded to knowing your local situation, knowing your provincial or state situation, and knowing your national situation. And your tiers go up in accordance with what health guidelines are doing. And they've even got tables in here about the population of your league's locality, 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 99,000, 100,000, with limits, okay? If you are below 10,000, you are allowed to have 0 daily active COVID-19 cases. The number's got to go down to 0 before you can start on to the tiers.
Okay.
Maximum of 5 cases for populations under 100,000, maximum of 50 cases for populations of 100,000 plus. So then they give examples tier by tier. So tier 1, league return with no contact. And there's 2 pages of that. Then the next one, okay, how do we know when we're ready to restart contact drills? Because that increases the risk of infection. You're tackling. That's going to be, heavy breathing, shouting, lots of respiratory droplets. How do we know when we're ready for that?
So league return with no contact, that would be, so roller derby is where they skate around in the circle. So the league return that would basically be, they would just be doing, instead of playing the game, they would be like doing drills of getting back in shape by skating around the track.
Exactly. Skating drills, essentially.
Right, okay.
That's right. And then league only scrimmage, so nobody in the audience. And this is within your own league. This isn't before teams in other cities or other states. And
Right.
it's absolutely brilliant. And the nice thing about it is there's nothing about these guidelines that it is specific to roller derby. This could be
Mm-hmm.
adapted by any teams. Hockey teams could
Okay.
use this. Soccer teams could use this. Rugby teams could use. Curling teams could use this. Uh, Basketball teams could use this.
Right.
Football and so on, because it really talks about the conditions in your and the number of athletes you can get together and the kind of drills you can run. And so for contact sports, there's rules, very specific rules of when and when not. And but before laboring it to death, I'm absolutely in love with this PDF. It has been widely praised by epidemiologists as the smartest return to play guideline currently available in the world.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, epidemiologists love it because it's so incredibly smart and dialed in to best practices. And so basically, if you want to take this and use it for your sport, I even tweeted at the Flat Track Derby Association, the WFTDA. I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you use this, and they posted a GIF in response. Take it and go.
Nice.
Yeah, little Canadian humor reference there.
That's great. Excellent. Well, that's good. Yeah, it looks good. It's nicely laid out. It seems to be
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. What you need to do, and just stick to that. Yeah. So it
So
looks.
you could call that another good news piece. A little COVID-19 good news. You bet you didn't think we could.
So it's. I think I saw basically the full scale events with spectators. That basically is going to be when a vaccine is available. I think.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
though a
That's sort
vaccine is
yeah.
available, the league should. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that'll be similar to BC's Phase 4, right? Right now we're in Phase 3. Phase 4 it allows for the return of large stadium events, and that's not going to be permissible until we have widely available vaccines.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's some
Now,
good
is it time
stuff.
for a little news of the weird? Is it time
The
for Florida Man?
Oh, Florida Man. Okay, let me see if I can get Florida Man shared into the thing. We
This
should play this
this is the most
video.
amazing video of the past week. But we'll follow it up with a really nice chaser. This is the shot, though. You got
Hold
to have the
on, I
shot
will.
first. The chaser will be next.
Oh, I know what I can do. Let me just share. I'll just share that window. Where did it go? There we go. I'll share it here. Oh, my thing is being weird about screen sharing. Hold on. Whoops.
Live TV, babe. Live TV. It'll break
I
your heart.
know it's brutal. Uh, Hold on.
Why does it sound like somebody is like scouring a frying pan or something, or whisking a frying pan? Oh, and it stops the second you. There it is.
Somebody out front. I have my door open because it's quite warm today.
Okay. All right.
Hold on. Browser source, add source.
Somebody's raking the sidewalk near Joe's house. It's a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Let me hold on. I think this will work.
So this is in Florida. I'll set it up while Joe's looking. And there's a lawyer who dresses up as the Grim Reaper and carries a scythe, and he just kind of wanders around, just talking to people about the coronavirus. And sometimes he gets into some really interesting conversations with people. This might, in fact, be his most interesting conversation.
Here we go. Okay, I've got it.
I don't want to spoil it. So whenever Joe's ready, just hit that play button.
Here
and
we go.
Folks, decide for yourselves what you think about this.
Here we go.
Biden and Hunter went over to China.
Well, let me get this straight. Okay, Hunter
They
Biden,
brought it back.
after we went to...
This is what, no, you know what, this is weaponized.
So Hunter Biden and Joe Biden went to China, and did they create the virus, or did they...
No, they didn't create it.
What did they do?
They brought it back here.
Oh, so they put it in like a tube and brought it back, or...
No, not in a tube.
Okay, how did they
Not
do
in
it?
a
They
tube.
got it themselves and then injected it in
No,
somebody?
no.
Okay, so Hunter Biden, and then Joe...
This is the Democratic Party trying
It's a
to overthrow Donald Trump.
Okay, where did you learn that?
Just by being alive. I'm 63 years old.
Okay, I do a safe distance.
Okay, no, okay.
Yeah, I have social distance.
Anyway,
No, I'm just doing 6 feet. No, I'm not scared of you, but
There's no way in hell I want to fly on you.
no way you're going to what?
There's no way in hell I want to fly on you.
Oh no, I'm just trying to keep safe. So, all right, well, cool. That's a new one. Yeah, I've heard.
Totally. Let's leave this way.
Yeah, so there we go. That was him. There's no way in hell I want to fly on you. I don't even know what he. So how do you know? I love the answer to how do you know this? And he's like, just from being alive. I'm 63 years old. That's not.
Therefore, the coronavirus is a bioweapon brought back from China by Hunter Biden, but not in a tube.
It's not.
Not in a tube.
That's not how that works. That's not how. That is not how you convince. How you take a belief in your head and explain how it works, and then hand it to somebody else and go, "You should believe this too because."
And then, of course, the follow-up question is: so, are you going to protect yourself against this deadly bioweapon by, say, wearing a mask?
Wearing a mask.
And you absolutely know that this guy is in the "but my freedoms" crowd.
Yeah. Along with that should segue into the people in running the Shed the Mask, Don the Flag rally in downtown Austin, Texas.
Oh, Austin. Keep Austin weird. This isn't the way we thought you meant that, though, Austin. You're breaking our hearts tonight.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just, again, more people who don't know what they're talking about. And my thing is, even if masks weren't as good as we were saying, we know that they're not bad. And we know from your testing, they're not hurting your oxygen levels. They're not causing any kind of problems. So why are people so vehement against mask wearing, right? Like it'd be one thing to go, they're not that good. The doctors are overstating how good they are. But to actually organize a no, damn it, we won't wear these masks kind of protest there's paranoia going on there.
Yeah, and here's like a juicy little historical tidbit. You can verify this for yourself. But a very common refrain you'll hear on the Twitter box is, "There's no way the founding fathers would tolerate this." Well, it's absolutely fascinating that General George Washington, during the Revolutionary War, did you know there was also a smallpox outbreak? Did you know this, Joe Foldrum? There was a smallpox outbreak affecting the colonies. And George Washington was a smallpox survivor. It hit him at age 15, and he had lifelong scars as a result. And he required the revolutionary forces under his command to get variolated against smallpox, which is basically, and variolation's pretty gross and pretty dangerous. You take the pus out of someone who has smallpox, and you scratch it into a wound in somebody who hasn't had smallpox yet. And they develop a nasty pock where you do it. But if they survive, because there's about a 1 to 2% fatality rate from variolation.
Eesh.
But then it gives you lifelong immunity against smallpox.
Right.
And it is thought that this made an enormous difference in the revolutionary forces, at least those under the command of George Washington, in their advance against the British.
Yeah.
For instance, there was a very brief period in 1776 when the revolutionaries thought, "Hey, let's go north and let's get Canada on side," because at that point, our issues were not that dissimilar to America's, right? We're sending taxes off to a distant land, feeling underrepresented, feeling So you could make a case that maybe Canada would have come on side, but the army that went north into Quebec got just absolutely slaughtered by smallpox, and were completely ineffective. Their general died. It affected about 40% of the troops. Oof. Like, this is smallpox is a bad disease. But Washington's troops didn't get it, and he mandated it as an absolute requirement of a revolutionary to show their patriotism by getting variolated. So take that, patriots
Yeah.
who claim to know what the founding fathers would or wouldn't allow or permit or demand.
Right.
Support for the revolution. George Washington would be wearing a mask.
And it also turns out so would Mitch McConnell. Like, we're getting
Yeah.
some really weird mask results out of America these days. We've got
There's
whole
a bit of mask
bunch.
reversal.
Yeah, the GOP is now saying yes, everybody should wear a mask. At least they were for a while. I don't think they've been pushing.
They were on Friday, but
They
now
were-
it's Sunday, so I don't know what's happening.
So it's hard to say, but I think they finally heard, hey, if everybody wears a mask, we could actually get the economy going again. And that's all they care about.
There was even a point where Donald Trump said, I've never been against masks. I think I look like the Lone Ranger in a mask. Well, dear viewer, we'll leave that to you to decide.
Does that mean he's cutting holes in it and putting it over his eyes?
One can only speculate. We absolutely,
I look like the Lone Ranger in my mask.
It would be, just that simple maneuver of Donald Trump appearing in public wearing a mask. It would be like you could almost measure it. It's a grim experiment. How many hundreds or thousands of lives would be saved per appearance of Donald Trump in a mask in public?
Yeah.
And on that basis alone, like, my God, if me wearing a red mask that said "Make America Great Again" in Trump would get everybody to wear masks, I would wear that mask. It is that obvious and that important. I would say, without hesitation, okay, if the only way we're all wearing masks is if we wear this odious Republican mask, sign me up. I will do it because I am a team player. I'm on Team Humanity fundamentally.
Make America COVID free again. Which now makes me wonder if that's what Covfefe means.
Oh. Or, maybe is that what Maca means, which is one of the long-standing nicknames for Paul McCartney, who, as we all know, died when he was 27.
Oh.
According to all the clues.
Oh, is that a thing?
On Abbey Road. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of the oldest pop music conspiracies, is that Paul McCartney secretly died at 27, and they're trying to tell us on the cover of the Abbey Road album, but that's perhaps for another time.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Should we end it off with some fun? End it off with the song that I've got that we could play?
We can out on a song.
You haven't. Rob has not heard this one yet, I think, even though I've sent it to him a couple times. Oh, wow. Why is my share not... Hold on. Let me just... I'm going to put our title card up first while I prep this.
We're still here. The title card's up, but we're still here.
We're still here. It's just that my screen share doesn't want to pop up for some reason. There we go. Hold on. I just got to hit it.
We're going to end on some pretty great music.
This is it. Here we go. Okay, and then we're going to go full screen again, and I'm going to bring back... Hey, there we go. All right. Sorry for this, folks. So this is... I've got his name. Hold on. Where'd he go? This is Tom McGovern. You can find him on YouTube. I'll put a link, actually, in there right now. And we'll leave you on this song. Thanks so much for listening to Caustic Soda and dropping in and saying hi. Appreciate those of you who say hi in the chat and stuff like that. We'll play this out. Rob has not heard this. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, got a favor to ask. Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Save a human life with a menial task. Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Look at their numbers, look at our numbers. Shut the fuck up and put on your mask.
And they want to throw God's wonderful breathing system out the door.
Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. If you say they're killing people, then you're dead wrong. I really shouldn't even have to write this song. If you trust Trump, you can kiss my ass. And shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Everybody! Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Shut the fuck up and put on your mask. Save a human life with a menial task. Just shut the fuck up and put on your mask.
There you go. Shut the fuck up. Put on your mask. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Later. Spread the word, not the virus.